Hello everyone, welcome to today's persecution report. My name is Rana Meher, I'm your host today. With me, we have very distinguished people today that is like our dream team for every persecution team. So let me introduce, we have Anwar Sadat Jihan. He is an aerospace engineer in profession, and by passion he's a writer and columnist. And Jihan, I am very privileged to have you today as my co-host. And we have Jasmine Chaudhry. She's a senior public health practitioner, very renowned politician as well. And also we have Dr. Raihan Jamil. He has many more quality. He's an educator, he's a writer, and he been working for Bangladesh. He's been campaigning for human rights and liberation war of Bangladesh for a very long time. So thank you everyone for being with me. To start with the program today, I'm going to talk about politics, but I'm not going to start up with politics. I'm going to give you a story of a woman, a person. So this woman, she's from a village in Sunamganj, a small city in Bangladesh. She had her grandson 8 months ago. And she been to the Union Parishad office, a local government office, for a birth certificate. Why? Because the birth certificate is needed to prove that the person, the grandson, is exist. Maybe eventually he will grow up to go to a school, and more than anything, she needs that birth certificate to show that he exists as a Bangladeshi national. Now, this woman went to that local government office for 8 times in last 6 months. And every time she either found the office was closed, or the local chairman who looks after those matters, he's not there, and the other people who could help her, they are not there either. So this woman is coming back home every time with empty hand and broken heart and with a tired feet. Now, the story of this woman is not an anecdote. It was a policy, it was a consequence of something happened after 5th of August 2024, when the local government was dismantled without any kind of backup plan, any sort of way to go forward, and any sort of any thought of how those people will go through, how to help those people in that situation without any thoughts of it. So in today's program, we will talk about how the local government of Bangladesh collapsed and how the people in grassroots suffering as a result. Jihan, I am going to go to you first. Jihan, you've been working, you've been campaigning about human rights of people in Bangladesh. You've been campaigning about liberation war. You've been campaigning about grassroots people for a very long time. And I know you are very much aware about the system of the local government, how it used to work and how it collapsed. So it would be very nice if you can go through us about the whole process. Then we'll go to the question section. Thank you, Jihan.
Thank you, Ranapa, for connecting today. Special thanks to Dr. Jamil and Jasmine Appa for sharing your time. So as Ranapa, you are saying that this child was missing his, or has been missing his birth certificate for more than 8 months. Why is that? It is because this birth certificate is a function that is executed by the local government of Bangladesh that does not exist today. So in this presentation, I will try to go over the local government very briefly, because most of the citizens lack the proper understanding of how the local government system of Bangladesh actually works and what local government really is. So what is really local government? Local government is the layer of its progress is not parliament, is not any ministry sitting in the capital. It is the elected council in your village. It is the elected mayor in your city or elected council in your district. These are the group of people whose job is to transform national level policies, national law, and national budget into a functioning road. A road that works, a working clinic, into a hospital that opens during times of emergency.
Jihan, sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's happening to my side, but I cannot hear you properly.
How about now?
It's better now.
Okay. Okay. So the local government system of Bangladesh or any democracy is important primarily for three reasons. Number one, proximity. Number two, accountability. And number three, democratic depth. So proximity. A national government, no matter how well intentioned they have, they cannot always connect with the local people in a level that local government can. Elected chairman from your community knows your community better than an administrator being parachuted in. Then accountability. When the person who decides whether your roads get repaired or not lives in your village, the reason for his work becomes personal because he cannot avoid you or your community. He or she has to face your community in the upcoming election. So accountability is ensured by the local government system. And then democratic depth. Democracy is not some random word. It has to be practiced at scale, every day, repeatedly, at every layer of society. And that is ensured by the local government. Now let's take a look at the local government system of Bangladesh and how it actually works. The local government system of Bangladesh runs on two parallel tracks, one on the rural track and the other urban track. On rural track, we have Union Parishad at the very base tier. And there are about 4,581 Union Parishads in Bangladesh. And above the Union Parishad sits the upazila Parishad that includes an elected chairman, vice chairman, and reserved women representation. And then the highest tier is the district council. These are the rural track. And if we look at the urban track, there is city corporation that so many of us know about, that there are 12 city corporations in Bangladesh. The major metro cities are run by city corporation. And then we have Poroshobha or the municipalities, and there are 330 of them. Now, Ranapa, all these tier of the government are not any policy or some mere legislative decision. These are done by the Constitution of People's Republic of Bangladesh, and to be specific, Articles 59 and Article 60 provides the citizen with the right to have representation in their local government level. The Article 59 specifically states that the local government members have to be elected. It cannot be selected or appointed. It has to be elected. They have to be elected by the people. And Article 60 provides that local government needs to be elected. It cannot be appointed by any central authority. And this is how decentralization is ensured. What are the purposes of the local government and all these branches? The most important, if we take a look, we will see immunization, the measles crisis that we are facing now in Bangladesh. Local government has a big role to play in mitigating that. And then disaster response. For example, Bangladesh is a disaster-prone country. We have floods. And during the disaster, these local government branches come in handy. And then we have civil registration, the story that Ranapa was talking about. Our birth certificate, our death certificate, our marriage certificate, all come from the local government. Then social safety net. For example, the elderly allowance, the disability allowance, the widow allowance, all this comes from the local government. Infrastructure, the road maintenance. During monsoon season, we need road repairs. All these are handled by the local government. And then health coordination, the community clinics. As you will see that the Bangladesh Awami League government has built a plethora of community clinics all across Bangladesh, and it is championed by the whole world. Now, what actually was built, Rana, as you asked? It was built during the last 15 years. Bangladesh Awami League and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina built 13,000 plus community clinics nationwide. There was a resolution adopted at the UN championing this community clinic system. And then Bangladesh achieved 90% plus immunization coverage, in which local government played an important role. The poverty rate came down to 19% from 40%. Local government played an important role. And then we have 70% drop in maternal mortality, 70%. All these were achieved over time through dedicated, coordinated action by the Awami League government. But one day, August 5, the catastrophe happened, and then every elected official was removed without any justification, and administrators were parachuted in from the capital without an election. And that goes directly against the Constitution, the Article 59. The 12 city corporation mayors gone, 60 Jilla Parishad chairmen gone, 493 Jilla Parishad chairmen were nowhere to be found. Then the flood season arrived. We have seen after the August 5, 2024, the flood. And during this flood, during this disaster time of disaster, the local government is even more important, because an administrator parachuted in from the capital does not know which household will flood first. But the elected chairman from your community, who has that deep ties with your community, knows which will be affected first. So we have seen when you remove the local government unilaterally without any justification, the consequences. Households were flooded, people suffered, and there were no action from the government during that time. And then the measles rubella crisis. Hundreds of children are dying in Bangladesh today, Rana Appa, and the government layer that is tasked with mitigating this crisis, especially during time of crisis, are not there. The ward councillors are gone. The last mile mobilization collapsed, and now we don't have the required coverage. Now, two governments. We already have two governments after the Awami League government was ousted, the Yunus government and then the BNP government. But both of these governments have something in common. They are not giving any priority to the constitution. One government removed all the elected officials and parachuted in administrators from the bureaucratic branches of government, and the other government, BNP government, appointed their people as administrator. So there is no elected government. The citizens of Bangladesh today don't have any representation at the local level. Now at this moment, in this situation, what needs to happen? We need to have a free, fair election at the local level, all branches of government, and all branches of government needs to be run by elected officials. Back to you, Anapa.
Thank you, Jihan. It is very strange, isn't it, Jihan? Imagine I'm sure Jasmine Appa can say way better than me. Imagine that same thing happened in England. All of a sudden, we lose all of our councillor, what would happen? That would be a disaster as well. And in Bangladesh, we've been through the same thing. And Jihan, the time frame you are talking about, I was in Bangladesh that time. I was in a very important city of Bangladesh called Sylhet, and I am a living witness to experience what happened, what the people actually went through because of the absence of local government. And as you were saying, I was just recollecting as well, one of my family member, he been in Bangladesh for last 6 weeks, and he been running to get some papers after his father died, and only after 5 weeks of running and continuous running in the local office, he somehow managed to get it. So the numbers and the stories are harrowing. Those are not right, should not be. Dr. Raihan Jamil, thank you, Jihan, again. Dr. Raihan Jamil, if I come to you now, this disruption in local government is nothing new to Bangladesh, isn't it? Maybe it is new in extent, but it is not entirely new. We have seen local government suffered during martial government. We have seen local government suffer during caretaker administration. But why are we talking about 5th of August 2024? What is so distinctive about it? What happened after 5th of August 2024 that is completely different from what happened before? If you can just go through with this, please.
Thank you, Ms. Meher, for giving me the floor. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We hope you're well, wherever you're listening from, listening live or later on. This is something very important for us to think about. What is so distinct about this local administration governance since August 2024? Using local government as a political prize isn't new in this country, like you are saying. Under Ziaur Rahman, under Hussein Mohammad Ershad, both ran this local government system as a party building machine. BNP abolished the upazila system in 1991, the moment it inherited power after the fall of Hussein Mohammad Ershad. So the instinct to capture these offices has a long, ugly history, and it does not belong to just one party. What happened after August 2024 is different in scale and simultaneity. Every mayor, every upazila chairman, every Zila Parishad chair was removed in a single day. Everyone was removed in a single day across the entire country. This has not happened before, not even under martial law. At least martial law had a command structure ready to fill the vacuum it created. But under the Jamaat Yunus regime, there was no such backups. There's a structural reason for this vacuum. The government making these decisions was itself extra-constitutional. It was kept in place by what the Supreme Court itself called the doctrine of necessity. A government built on the emergency justification does not plan for what comes after the emergency. Think about it. A government built on an emergency justification does not make plans about what will happen, what will come after that emergency is over. That government simply empties the building and walks away. Garcia Marquez wrote about a town condemned to repeat its own history because nobody remembered it accurately. This is exactly what we're seeing in Bangladesh. Bangladesh's local government has certainly repeated its history of being treated as a prize. But August 2024 wasn't a repetition. It was something this country has never actually tried. erase the entire layer at once, like Jihan was sharing with his information, erase the entire layer at once and build nothing to replace it. That's how it stands out. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. I was listening to you, and you were saying it sounds like the Yunus government, it was not totally legitimate government, wasn't it? And as much as I am not a law student, I'm not a law professional, but as much as I'm aware, if that government came to power as a doctrine of necessity, they should not touch something like local government, because that was not the necessity that time. The necessity should have been restoring the law and order, making sure that nobody is persecuted because of their political belief or their faith. But we have seen the surge on the other side, and at the same time they dismantled the local government without any prior need. So you can call me something like thinking way too much, but sounds like maybe they had some utter motive towards it. Yeah. Now, Ms. Chaudhary, if I can come to you. Now, Jihan and Dr. Jamil, they took us through to the system. Now, you please tell us what you think and what you know about the experience in the ground reality when 5th of August happened. What happened to different city corporation? There are city corporation in many different cities. What happened to that? So if we just walk us through to those people's experience and how people were suffering, what collapsed, and how people faced everything. Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary.
Thank you, Ms. Rana. It's a pleasure and an honor to join you all today on this very important discussion. If I may, I'm most comfortable, perhaps as a locally elected councillor in the UK, elected, as a representative in local government in the UK. What I want to start off with is how important and critical a functioning local government is for an effective delivery of public services and democratic government structures. So, in terms of whether you look at maintenance of social stability, social protection for as the sort of the level of government closest to its citizens, local authorities play a critical role in implementing social safety net programs, supporting the primary healthcare, maintaining local infrastructure, managing disaster responses, and resolving community-led problems. They serve, if you like, as the vital link between the national policies and the local needs, ensuring that government services which vulnerable population, the most vulnerable in our society, so whether it's widows, whether it's the people with disability, whether it's minority groups who are some of the most deprived or some of the most isolated citizens within our communities, it's about ensuring the services are reaching those people equitably. So when local government institutions collapse or become weak, dysfunctional, the consequences are felt immediately by those ordinary citizens through, across the country, because as we've heard from Jihan and Dr. Jamil, the speed and the scale of how, overnight the drastic changes were made within local government in Bangladesh. So this was felt across Bangladesh in every district, where the disruption of services, the story you started off with, and the stories that you've shared so far. This is very common. I have also had personal experiences, having lost my father in October 2024 and having to go back to Bangladesh. So there's been, we know these consequences are being felt by those most vulnerable the most through this disruption. And as Dr. Jamil has touched on, this government, the interim government, the Jamaat-led and Yunus interim government, they were they were an unconstitutional government, obsessed with making constitutional reforms, obsessed with taking control of the infrastructure, and in doing so, they destroyed the whole the development over the 17 years of Sheikh Hasina's government that we saw, where the local and the success, the economic success story was backed up. The local government was the backbone of those economic success story that we saw, which was Bangladesh was becoming like an economic miracle in South Asia. And the local government infrastructure was the backbone. So with the full attention of the interim government after the transition, or in my view, the hijack of power in August 2024, and their kind of obsession with constitutional reform and the disruption that they caused to local government, upazila parishads, municipalities, the city corporations. This created this huge vacuum, which affected millions of citizens. And what we saw was mob violence, the total breakdown in, lawness, rule of law, colliding with, a failure to give immunization to our young children, causing a severe measles outbreak in Bangladesh, as we know, which has already claimed well over 700 lives. These are reported deaths. There are many more, we're sure, that are affected. So weakening those local government structure had far-reaching consequences, including the social safety net, disaster protection, and healthcare services, as we know, as well as rural development in some of the most rural areas, with the agricultural initiatives that Sheikh Hasina's government had undertaken. They have also been hit, as we know. Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Chaudhary. Very insightful information. Dr. Jamil, if I can come back to you, and I'm sorry, I am keep going back to what happened over and over again, because after all this time, I'm still not convinced that how that whole process took place. So if we could go back to what Muhammad Yunus's administration said. So Muhammad Yunus's administration justified its mass removal of elected local representatives by pointing to their absence from office. Legally and constitutionally, is it something defensible? Do you think this is something a government can do?
Thank you for your question, Ms. Meher. Just like you, I'm not a legal expert, but it does not take to be one to comprehend the nuisance of all of this. Let's be precise about the legal mechanism. Emergency ordinances passed for this exact purpose by the same extra-constitutional government that then used them. That's not law. That's a government writing itself a permission slip. That's a government writing itself a permission slip. These representatives weren't absent because they walked off the job. They were absent because the political transition made it physically dangerous to be in their offices. We all remember the violences that started from July, August of 2024. Just because someone was part of the government, leave aside supporting the government, they were hanged, they were killed, they were burnt, they were brutally assaulted, to say the least. So these people were absent from their work because it was physically dangerous for them and their family members to be in their offices. Right? There's a constitutional difference.
Jamil, can I just quickly ask you, because you're saying they were removed because of their absence. So what you are saying, instead of ensuring their safety, government just took their job.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. And it's not that the government took their job. The government made it pretty much impossible for them to be at their jobs. Right? There was no safety for them. If I know I'll be killed, I'd rather not go to the office. Anyone would, right? And that's exactly what the government did. They did not say, do not go to the office, but they made sure these people would not go to the office. This is exactly what they did. So there's a constitutional difference between dereliction of duty, just like not going to the work is a dereliction of duty, and fleeing a mob. The Yunus Jamaat government was the founder, the originator, the father of this mob violence in Bangladesh. And that difference was simply ignored. You cannot say it didn't go. Just like we saw with our students. Students from the universities were beaten, handed over to the police for showing up for exams. If I know I'll be beaten up if I go for my exam, will I go for an exam? And then the university administration is saying, you did not come for the exam, so we're not going to let you pass. See the hypocrisy in this, the joke in all of this. That was the Jamaat Yunus administration. Not only were the killers and originators of mob violence, they were a laughing stock because of all of this. So no hearings, no notices, no chances for these administrators to respond. And as I was mentioning earlier, all of them were pretty much summarily fired on a single day. Did any country in the world ever face such a situation? Thousands of mandates were erased in one day. That's not the pace of careful constitutional governance. That's the pace of political consolidation. You're consolidating power and brutality and force. And if you want to see exactly how elastic Bangladesh's legal architecture has become, look at the caretaker government in question. Look at the caretaker government question itself. In 2011, the Supreme Court struck the caretaker system down as unconstitutional. So the caretaker government is no longer legal in Bangladesh's legal system since 2011. In November 2025, the same court reversed itself. The same court reversed itself and revived the caretaker government system, admitting in its own judgment that its 2011 ruling had helped produce, in the court's own words, authoritarianism and dysfunctional electoral policies. That's I unquote. So Ernest Hemingway once described courage as grace under pressure. Grace under pressure. Bangladesh's judiciary, under real political pressure, has shown the complete opposite. Not grace, just flexibility, just cowering under fear, bending towards whichever direction power happens to be leaning that year. So our judicial system has shown zero backbone, zero class, zero power, and zero bravery or courage in the face of when it really mattered. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. As we were talking about mob violence, if I can correctly remember some numbers, just up to 15th of August, by the United Nations report. That report, the Yunus government used to read it as a holy book on every single day with every single matter. Even in that report, the death toll till 15th of August was 1,400, something like that. And that so-called July Revolution, they claimed in that so-called July Revolution that ended in 5th of August, more than 700 people died. So if we just take that number, it means between 5th of August to 15th of August, more than 700 people died that time period. So when our local government officials, they were running out of fear for their life, instead of ensuring their safety, instead of taking care of them, you just described how government treated them like a weapon to punish the ordinary people in Bangladesh. isn't it? That's how it sounds like. And you were talking about the judiciary. Our judiciary system was shut down as well, straight after 5th of August. I'm sure we all can remember how some of those so-called July warrior like Hasnat Abdullah and others, they made a mob in Supreme Court and make sure the Chief Justice, he had to resign basically because of that mob. So judiciary system, not only the local government, judiciary system collapsed as well straight after 5th of August. Yeah. So thank you for taking us through this very important information. Ms. Chaudhary, I'm going back to you again. Now, all these events, all these numbers, all this tragic event took place. Someone has to pay for it, right? Someone has to take and accept the consequence of it. Now, our city corporations ran health services and coordinated with national immunization programs. When the corporation administrative chain collapsed, what specifically happened to that health delivery? What happened? We can see that in our current days when more than nearly 700 children died out of something as simple as measles. But can you please take us through, help us to understand what measles immunization mobilization actually requires at the local level, and what happened when that mobilization infrastructure disappeared in a day? Ms. Chaudhary?
Thank you, Rana, for your question. Just before I turn to respond, if I may interject just a point about the breakdown of the total breakdown that we've witnessed over the last 2 years of the judicial system, the whole justice system, which includes, and we must remember and acknowledge, during the days in July 2024, thousands of police officers were violently attacked and killed through those mob violence. And those deaths, nobody has been held accountable. Those deaths, nobody is, between the interim government and Tariq Zia's, newly formed BNP-led government, nobody has talked about those deaths. So we actually saw the beginning of the breakdown of the justice system in Bangladesh in those July, in these early days of the so-called uprising that Bangladesh had and I just wanted to interject that point before I move on to talking about the community clinics and the immunization programs. So the community clinic networks, as we know, have been long recognized as an important component of primary healthcare delivery, particularly in the rural areas, the most rural areas and most deprived areas in Bangladesh. They were designed to bring basic healthcare services closer to the communities who need them most. So at the point of needs and at the point of delivery was brought to as close as possible to the communities. Those clinics would provide the maternal health services, the immunization support, which is vital for protecting young children, as well as throughout the life course of citizens in Bangladesh, family planning, health education, and treatment for common illnesses. Now, the deadly measles outbreak that has swept across Bangladesh exposed these devastating consequences of disruptions in those primary healthcare and immunization systems. Community clinics have long served as the front line of preventative healthcare. So the vital vaccines and immunizations, which we know, according to World Health Organization, saves over millions of lives every year. And these immunization, but when under Sheikh Hasina's government, we were close to that 95% target, which would have eliminated measles in Bangladesh. Since the collapse of Sheikh Hasina's government, we have seen how the lack of procurement, the lack of procuring of the immunizations has led to it's a huge crime as far as I'm concerned as a public health professional. It's a crime not to immunize our young children and to leave them vulnerable infectious disease that can cause death and lifelong complications for those who even recover measles. So the tragedy is particularly striking because it's one of the most preventable childhood diseases. And the World Health Organization notes that vaccination is safe, is effective. And we know the UN official in Bangladesh pleaded in interim government how they should make sure that children are vaccinated. Those vaccinations should be procured. And they just simply ignored them. They ignored them, and it's the negligence, and it's a crime against young people, crime against humanity as far as we're concerned, that we are witnessing in Bangladesh. The whole governance structure that's unstable, the mechanisms that's been weakened through the changes and the collapse of local government, these will have long-lasting impact in years to come. So this is, the unfortunate numbers of death and the infectious reported cases. These have implications for many, many years to come in terms of public health in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chaudhry. We can see the tragedy now is unfolding, isn't it? We can see children are dying. The families they have to bury their young children, and the children who are alive, the families are struggling to pay their hospital's fee. And those hospital fees still not waived, so they still have to pay. When the government is coming up with a budget claiming in that budget they allocated the most amount of money in health sector, way more than other government. That is such a hypocrisy at the same time, isn't it, Ms. Chaudhry? Jihan, can I come to you with a very important question, and I know you'll be the best person to talk about it. We all know our Bangladesh is the one of the most disaster-prone country in the world, and the disaster management framework from national level to the local level, it is and at least it was one of the most genuine achievement of the government system. And we know our Milli government, it was praised not only locally, internationally many times because how they looked after people when the disaster happened. Now, what happens to that framework when the elected chairs of those committees are simultaneously removed across the country? How people are suffering as a result of this?
Thank you, Ranapa. So the question is important since it deals. Can you hear me? First of all, okay. So disaster management. Bangladesh has already built a disaster management system that works, and it was built over time with experiences of facing disaster and it was built surrounding the people, local people who lives in your community. And there is this thing called the Union Disaster Management Committee, which is the operational base of the entire system. And the Union Parishad chairman sits on top of this committee. Now, when August 5 happened, government was ousted. Yunus government came over and he removed all the thousands of chairmen across the country. So all these Union Disaster Management Committee chair were gone. And when the chairman vanished, the problem is that the way that the chairman knows his or her community, the way that the chairman knows his or her community people, a bureaucrat parachuted in does not have the same level of idea. He or she does not know where the flood shelter is or which household will need assistance first. So there was no chairman, then bureaucrats came in and they had no idea. They had no preparation. And that preparation, the government did not care that there is no preparation. The government, the Yunus government to be specific, left millions of people vulnerable. Now, Ranapa, Bangladesh is a country that is prone to disaster. I remember in my first semester at college, in one of my course, international and intercultural communication, the professor was asking, "Oh, you are from Bangladesh? That always flooded." So many people abroad associate Bangladesh with this flood of the 90s era. But since then, we came a long way. The cyclone mortality rate, if we compare it to the 1970, we will see that there was a one whole magnitude of drop in the cyclone mortality. And this disaster management success stories is one of the most celebrated across the world. And it was not built just out of nothing. It was built over time through experience. And that is why Rabindranath Tagore did not just write about rural Bengal. He built something for it. Shanti Niketan, his rural reconstruction project, he built it in the rural areas because he understood that development that does not have touch to the local community, that is not rooted in the community level, will not survive contact with reality. So when this government removed this local layer of governance, the country was left vulnerable. And this is what exactly happened. Back to you.
Thank you, Jihan. I was listening to you that suddenly I remembered the names. I quickly Googled something about how Awami League looked after the disaster-prone people. There's something called Kurishkul Project. Kurishkul Project is the largest climate migrant resettlement initiative in the world. And it was made under the Ashram Prakolpo, the housing for people who need it. And it says it's a modern flood-resilient apartment, housing and economic rehabilitation for thousands of landless and climate-displaced families. So that's how Awami League looked after us. And of course, then 5th of August happened, everything changed. I know the Astroem project, it was closed last year, June, so I don't know how the Kurishkul project is doing, and I am not aware of how the other project like this is still functioning or not. So thank you, Jihan, for taking us through this. Ms. Chaudhry, if I can come back to you again. You have already described about the importance of community clinic and others. So just to go through some numbers, the community clinic program was one of the Awami League's most celebrated government achievements. More than 13,000 clinics cited by International Health Organization as a model for grassroots health delivery. Now, how dependent was that network on the functioning local government structure beneath it, and what was happening to it?
Thank you, Rana. I think the whole, the social safety net, if you like, which was created by Sheikh Hasina's administration, was heavily dependent on the local, decentralization and the closest level of engagement with local communities, the local, advocates for what they need. And it was heavily relying on those local government institutions. So, between 2000 and 2024, for example, Bangladesh built one of the most extensive social safety nets within South Asia. Reported budget grew from about, it was 43-fold the budget had grown. In terms of, we have some figures recently in terms of homes for the homeless, the Ashrian project under that social safety net. So this is free land and house rehabilitation for landless families since 1997. And under Sheikh Hasina's administration, there was 5.56 lakh landless and homeless families given land. 2.5 million people were housed. So these are people who are living in extreme poverty, the most vulnerable in our communities. So this, when you take away those kind of safety nets, the social infrastructure, the whole infrastructure that was, this was all built on, what we are seeing is a tragedy kind of unfold in front of our eyes, where those homeless people are facing prospects of becoming homeless again. Houses are being, we've seen sort of land grabbing going on with mob violence, being, those people, families being attacked, whether they are sort of religious minorities. Violence against women and girls and children is endemic in Bangladesh. So this is like a regular. It's become, the country seems to have become a safe haven for extremists and mob mob violence. So there was 30 programs. You touched on the climate resilience programs. Those were all designed to help the most vulnerable and protect the most vulnerable, and that requires a strong local government governance, local government institution, and as we have heard and we have discussed today, the whole it was a deliberate attempt to wipe out that whole infrastructure when the Yunus interim government came into place in August 2024. So we've also touched on the delays on the sort of delivery of administrative, the beneficiary and the verification of identification, things like that. There's an erosion of public trust. People are seeing, police officers have lost their own sort of officers, their colleagues, through mob violence and attacks. So those that are there to protect the citizens are terrified for their own lives. A lot of them have been removed from their jobs. So there's a whole erosion of trust. So the collapse of the weakening of the local government has, as we know, wider implication than the social protection and the healthcare. And over the 17 years, Sheikh Hasina's government has, the whole success of that government was historically being built upon a combination of strong community engagement, decentralization of service delivery, and a collaboration between government agencies, including civil society, organizations, and local communities. So disruption in any part of the ecosystem can undermine broader progress and socioeconomic progress. So the chaos and crisis that we've witnessed over the last 2 years now in every aspect of life in Bangladesh for ordinary citizens is a testament of that. And it's no wonder, from sort of rickshaw drivers to doctors to students and freedom fighters, people of Bangladesh are crying out for Sheikh Hasina's return to Bangladesh.
Thank you, Ms. Chaudhry. Dr. Jamil, I am coming to you with a very non-glamorous question. Yeah? So that non-glamorous question is about the rural road maintenance, the drainage system, the small bridge, small markets, that local government were responsible for them, and they still are. So, for the 60% of Bangladeshis who live in that rural area, as non-glamorous as it is, that those are the difference between being connected to market and services and being isolated. So what has the 2 year of administrative vacuum done to this dimension of local government? So if you just go through, please.
Indeed, these are the kind of things we perhaps take for granted. We don't think about it much. The infrastructure maintenance, Ms. Meher, is not a project. It's a continuous process. Roads need repair before every monsoon. We are a monsoon country after all. Drainage channels need clearing. None of that happens without an accountable elected chair who can actually authorize the work and approve the payment. That has not been happening. And as we have been talking about for the last almost an hour, the Jamaat Yunus government has summarily fired them all, right? Or threatened them with their lives. And now the Jamaat BNP government has put in people who are either inefficient or have no idea what they are doing only by their allegiance to the party. So things are not moving forward. The local government engineering department executes a lot of this work, but it depends on elected local supervision to keep the contractors honest. These engineers do not directly go and work them by themselves, right? They find vendors, they find contractors who will actually do the work. And to keep them honest, you need elected local supervision. Remove that, and contractor accountability collapses quietly in 10,000 small ways that nobody even puts in a headline. And this doesn't sit still, it compounds. It gets bigger and bigger. A road not repaired before 2024, for example, a road that has not been repaired before the 2024 monsoon costs more to repair in 2025 or in 2026. Deferred maintenance becomes capital expenditure. Every month of vacancy where work has not been done makes this bill bigger, and the village and people's connections to the bigger cities, to the capital, get more isolated. So there's a fiscal wound underneath all of these as well. What is that fiscal wound, you may ask? The holding taxes, the trade licenses, the licensing fees, the market rents are all collected locally, all degraded without an elected body to collect them. Jivanananda Das, one of my favorite poets, spent his entire career returning time and again, poem after poem, to the same fields and rivers of Bengal. That's the countryside this segment is actually about, that we're not feeling glamorous to talk about, right? This is the countryside that Jivanananda Das keeps coming back to time and again. It isn't an abstraction in a policy paper, Ms. Meher. It's the place that 60% of our country, Bangladesh, calls home. And right now, the road back to this countryside, to this 60%, is falling apart. If we don't act on this quickly enough, then we will not have much left to work with. And if I may add a quick thing about what Ms. Chaudhary was mentioning earlier about law and justice, whatever has happened before the Jamaat BNP government took power, to whatever form of an election, it is in Tariq Rahman's best interest to show that he is strong and strict about law enforcement. He should bring the culprits to justice, but there is no sign that he has any interest of doing that except watching movies, visiting people's weddings, and driving toy cars. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. You turned a non-glamorous question to a quite glamorous one. Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Chaudhary, we are running short in time, so I'm just going to quickly ask you one question which is very important and needs to be discussed. The BNP government has pledged to local election. Okay, good news. The Election Commission has prepared draft rules, another good news, but party-linked administrators are being appointed while elections are discussed. So, what do you think? What is the practical difference between an elected local representative and an appointed administrator? And why does that difference matter for the services we have discussed today? So, Ms. Chaudhry.
Thank you, Rana. I think, as Dr. Jamil mentioned, unfortunately, what we are witnessing is a very familiar pattern, actually, whenever BNP have come into power, whether it was in coalition with Jamaat or, with some support from Jamaat, from their, foundation, we have seen a familiar pattern in their history where the tragedy is those who were against the liberation war in 1971. They've come into power to serve the interest of those who are anti-Bangladesh, anti-liberated Bangladesh. And this is what we are witnessing, what we seem to be seeing a continuation of that. So Jamaat seem to be, it's difficult to tell who's actually leading this government so far. It's difficult to tell whether it is actually BNP who have been elected, or whether there's been all sorts of deals being made internally within Bangladesh or externally with other partners in play here. But what we must determine is what happened with the national election, where a major political party was excluded from taking part, and this huge deficit in democracy. You cannot exclude over 50% of the population within Bangladesh and talk about forming a democratic government. Whether that's local elections, whether that's national elections, it's really important that we have a strong, resilient democratic processes in place. And what we are seeing is, mob violence, rape on a regular basis, rape of young children, killing of young children. And this is a country which is globally being watched, globally being described as a country which has become a safe haven for extremists, rapists, murderer who were convicted of rape and murders. And this is it's heartbreaking for someone, who all of us who are who have a close connection to Bangladesh, whether that's through birth or family or, as members of friends and family who are still living in the country, who are terrified to, carry on with their day-to-day, work and feeling safe in their homes and not being able to function as an ordinary citizen. So it is difficult. It is challenging, but I hope that there's common sense prevails within the BNP government. That common sense prevails, and they start to recognize the importance of how critical it is to have strong local governments, elected local representatives, as well as bringing whole democratic processes back into system in Bangladesh.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Chaudhry. We are towards the end of the program, but I am so sorry. I cannot resist myself from asking a question, because this question is bothering me for all this time, and I do not see any better person to answer me this question if you do know it. Why do you think this thing happened? Because everything that Muhammad Yunus and his government did, there was a plan behind it. There was a plan to ruin something. So when they decided to take this really, really big, huge step, of course, they were aiming for something. So what do you think? This question is open to panel. Jihan, please, if we can answer. Ms. Chaudhry, if we can please answer. Dr. Jamil as well, if you can just tell us, why do you think that happened, that whole fiasco had happened?
I think Jihan would be the best candidate to answer this. You're muted.
Microphone.
I think Jasmine Apai is being a local rep. But I think what Yunus was appointed by the deep state for a particular agenda, which is to destroy Bangladesh as quickly as possible. And to destroy democracy, to destroy a country, you have to destroy its local government, because local government is perhaps the most important pillar of democracy in a country. And if you want to kill democracy in a country, you kill the most important pillar. And that's what Yunus did, to answer your question very briefly.
Bullseye, thank you. And because you mentioned deep state, Mohammed Yunus's government and his partners, they have a very close tie with many, many NGOs. And the safety net that Sheikh Hasina built, that was the government program. It was so well enough, though the NGO sometimes could not do some of their businesses they wanted to do. So there could be some link with it as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, panel. We are very much towards the end of this program. Now, the thing is, the local government is the backbone of the nation, if I can say it as straightforward as I can. The local government is needed from birth to death. Every single time the local government was there for people of Bangladesh, and we want the same thing to happen. So from our persecution report today, we demand the local government to come back with a free and fair election, because without it, we have experienced the suffering of people for last 2 years, and the people of Bangladesh, they deserve it. Our constitution requires it, our people deserve it, so there should not be no reason to reestablish our local government as soon as possible. So thank you very much for being with us today. We will see you again next week, same place, same time, with new topic, or we will maybe talk about the same topic over and over again, so the topic is not forgotten. So we are stopped talking today, but we are not stopping at all from persecution report. Thank you very much. See you next week. Till then, stay well.